Well, the key word in all of this is responsibility. And right now, people want to point their finger and say that group is responsible for all the ills in the world,
Right.
be it the Illuminati, the Jews, the Nazis. We got to point a finger and say they're responsible. So let's talk about responsibility, Mark.
Sure. It all comes down to, first and foremost, what am I doing? Am I contributing to this dynamic of fear and negativity and coercion and violence throughout society? And you do that just by the way you think. That's first and foremost. That's number one. And the problem is most people don't want to take responsibility for their beliefs. They don't want to take responsibility for the way they think. And that means if you are a supporter or a condoner of government, of coercion, of violence in any form, if you believe in taxation of any kind, you're part of the problem. If you believe in government of any kind, you're part of the problem. If you believe in prohibition of any kind, you're part of the problem. If you believe that someone else needs permission to exercise a right that they already have inherently, you're part of the problem. People don't want real freedom because they're afraid of the responsibility that comes with real freedom. That's why so many people are still advocates of government violence and still say, I support police, I support military, I support all these government institutions that have done nothing in the history of humanity except cause suffering and death. And even a cursory, glance through world history would prove that that's the fact. But here's the other problem. There's such overwhelming ignorance. That's why people don't want responsibility, because they're ignorant children in their actual psychological makeup.
And
You know what?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I always want to make this point that ignorance is not a bad thing, right? Okay, I want people to understand that when you tell someone they're ignorant, you're not saying they're stupid, you're saying that they're unlearned. And that ignorance is actually a gift because now you're open to learn everything. So I just want to throw that in there.
Well, I would look at it a little bit differently. I would say the capacity for intelligence is with most people. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, you're being pretty generous there, Mark. A lot of people who know the dynamic that's going on in the world. But I would say most people have the capacity for learning new things. That's what intelligence is all about. The ability to take in new information, process it, understand it, then do something with it. I would say ignorance is a willful choice, especially in an age where information is overwhelmingly present, knowledge is overwhelmingly present.
Good point.
I would look at nescience as something that is not negative, as something that is not willful. Nescience is a form of not knowing, as ignorance is a form of not knowing. These are two forms of not knowing, but connotatively, or I guess you could say colloquially, in everyday conversation, most people never use or hear the word nescience. So I'll even spell it for the listening audience. It's Nescience, like N-E and then the word science, meaning no science. Again, I don't prop science up as a religion, but in general, the word science is derived from sciere, which means to know or to understand in Latin. It's where the word science came from in English. I look at most quote-unquote science that's going on today as just another religion funded by government. It's a belief system, and people believe it's the only arbiter of truth. The very left-brained among us, put all their, quote, faith in science and believe it's going to tell them the truth of the universe. I'm not a worshiper at the altar of science any more than I'm the worshiper at the altar of any religion. I just see science as another religion, as is government. The belief in authority is a religion. Money is a religion. All of these are false belief systems that take people away from truth and reality. But to go back to the premise here, nescience means to not know because one had no reasonable way of knowing. The information that was there, the information that they needed to understand was not there. It was not present. It means the information was actually absent from their ability to grasp, to take in. There was no mechanism or method for that happening. Ignorance, I see in stark contrast to nescience. Ignorance means that one is willfully ignoring something which is present. That's why it's called ignorance. It's ignorance. You are in the presence of that knowledge, yet you are saying, I don't need to know it, or I don't want to know it, in hubris or apathy. Okay? Hubris will say, I already know everything I need to understand about this or that, and I'm ignoring that. Okay? Even though I don't know it. And it could help me understand the dynamic a little bit better.
Boy, this is what a lot of that. All right.
Yeah. Most people do that with the occult because the word occult is an anathema to their belief system, and they generally don't even understand what it means, that it only means hidden knowledge. And it's the hidden knowledge about how the human psyche works and how it can be manipulated that they don't understand, and so they don't understand how those tactics of manipulation are being used against them. That's largely what comprises the occult. The other thing that comprises the occult is the workings of the spiritual laws of nature. Not only the spiritual laws, the physical ones as well. All regular science, the physical sciences would fall into the realm of the occult, but then also the spiritual sciences, the spiritual laws of nature that governs the consequences of our decision-making processes and behaviors that we carry out as a result of those processes. That is also governed by spiritual law, and that spiritual law has been occulted or hidden so that people can't understand it, and it gives them religion in its place. Okay, in place of that real knowledge and real information. But people who are willfully ignorant have chosen not to pay attention to knowledge that is right in front of them, that is being offered, that is at their disposal and at their fingertips if they choose to take it in, but they willfully refuse that knowledge. That, to me, is what defines a bad human being. You know, I kind of take the attitude a nescient human being is not necessarily a bad human being because it is through no fault of their own that they could not take in the prerequisite or required information to understanding something. An ignorant person I do see as a bad person because they've willfully chosen to ignore that information even though it could help and improve them. Capacity for learning, capacity for intelligence is altogether different. That is just where you're gauging actual ability of a person's brain, their psychological makeup, you know, how well they can take in and hold information and process it and come to an accurate understanding. I would say I take a quite lenient or optimistic approach when it comes to people's capacity for understanding things. I mean, people generally can understand things if they put their mind to it and work with that information a little bit. I don't see people as deficient in their mental and psychological capacities for understanding. I see them deficient in their will to understand things.
It's true.
That's what ignorance is.
Right. Yeah. You've got it there. The hubris, ignorance that we have to deal with as we become aware and awaken to these concepts of the occult and to the mechanizations of dark occulted politics. You know, the will for ignorance is one of the biggest trouble that any of us has as we try to interact with our fellow beings on planet Earth. And honestly, I feel this is one of our greatest challenges and our greatest strength because we need to start to bring people into alignment with natural law. The first step, of course, is to inform them, right?
Well, you know, you've ever heard of that joke or that saying, that which cannot kill you can only make you stronger? Well, I look at this dynamic of trying to bring information to the willfully ignorant as one of those scenarios that, you know, it may not have killed me yet, but it has certainly made me stronger. And you have that joke, you know, well, hey, universe, I'm strong enough. Thank you. Now, can you give me a hand here? You know, that's how I feel in these days because, you know, doing this work can certainly take its toll on somebody, especially if they're very, very cognizant of the actual dynamics that are taking place societally.
It's sad.
It really puts you in a position of almost loneliness because when you understand this and you understand how many people are ignorant of it and not even willing to discuss it, they're so fearful They're so mind controlled. They live in such closed-mindedness and apathy to what's going on around them because they're fearful about it. They think, oh, they have that victim mentality, that woe is me mentality, that, oh, I'm just little me. What can I possibly do to change this dynamic? Well, the first thing you could do is change yourself and get out of your own ignorance. It's a difficult process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You're going to have to do a lot of deconditioning and reevaluation of your own belief systems, a reevaluation of how you've lived your life. And most people don't want to do that. They don't want to look in that mirror. They don't want that. That's what this really is all about, folks, is deep personal introspection about the beliefs you've formerly held and the ones you still hold and the ones you are staying attached to that don't serve who you are and don't serve humanity as a whole. At all. All they're doing is contributing. All those belief systems that most people are attached to and are so fearful of leaving at the door are the very things that are enslaving you. They're not doing you any good. They never have. Just like government has never done you any good. Government has never been on anybody's side. It has just been there to control and enslave. That's what bad belief systems have been there to do. They've never really done anybody any good except put them in a comfort level, in a comfort zone, where they say, well, hey, this is all I know. Better the devil you know than the one you don't know, right? Wrong. You know what? Sometimes that devil that you know is going to get you killed. It's going to lead you over the cliff. It's like people are just so fearful of what they don't understand. That's why they want to stay attached. Another reason they want to stay so attached to these belief systems that don't serve us is because they know that getting rid of those inaccurate, erroneous belief systems and taking on the truth and taking the truth in themselves means that they need to have more personal responsibility for what's going on in this world. And most people don't want that. They just want to stay emotional children. They love it. Most of them. And another thing I say to people and they get angry at me is I say, most people love the world the way that it is. Most people love this world the way that it is. And that is an absolute 100% true statement, and there is no one on this planet that can refute the truth of that statement. The reason most people love the way that the world is because if they did not love it and they actually wanted to do something about it, it could not stay the way that it is. It's by definition, more people have to love and accept the world the way that it is than want to change it for it to stay the way that it is, by definition. Because if willpower were actively being applied, when you say, I don't like how this is and I'm going to do something about it, then the dynamic would change. It would change actually very rapidly, But most people are totally content to just essentially live like a kept animal on this planet. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about truth. Just do a social experiment. I ask people to just do social experiments with other people. Ask them to write down the 3 things they value most in life. And they'll write down family, friends, and health usually, but you will never see truth or freedom in that equation anywhere. You'll never see it in there. Some people, you might get 1 or 2. Hardly anybody ever writes down the word truth. You ask people, write down 3 words that are the most important thing to you in life. If you got 1 in 200 people that write down the word truth, you're doing good. That's why the world is the way that it is, folks. People don't care about what's real. They don't care about what's true. They want to live in illusion. They want to live in fantasy. They want to hear what they want to hear about what's real. They want to hear everything's going to work out and be okay. They want to hear good always triumphs over evil. It's all nonsense. It does not work out that way. Things do not just magically work out without the application of willpower. Action is required to change what is going on in our life. Action is required to change the current human condition. Without action applied, knowledge is meaningless. You have to learn what the problems are, make a diagnosis, and then understand the solution lies in changing your mind and then changing other people's minds. From the support of coercion, violence, and domination to an understanding of what real freedom and real responsibility entails in this life. And most people, they hear that and they want to run 1,000,000 miles an hour in the other direction from that. Because they don't want to grow up. They don't want to be cosmic adults. They want to be little psychological infants that are kept like animals are kept. That's what they want. They don't want truth. They don't want the responsibility that comes along with understanding truth.